Good evening to Christchurch West. Oh, that sounds good. Well, first, let me say thanks for having me here. Exciting times in the country and in the history of the Barbados Labour Party. A good time to count ourselves among the Barbados Labour Party family, right? Right? Yeah, I think so. And I feel quite proud. I was listening to your secretary read the minutes and talk about all of your activities in Christchurch West. Christchurch West is an important constituency, especially now. Right? The constituencies of Christchurch have to rally and make your presence felt because it seems that some of those in some parts of Christchurch do not consider themselves or have not considered their representation, or let me put it this way. Regrettably, the representation in some parts of Christchurch, one part of Christchurch in particular, has left something to be desired. And while I did come to talk a little bit about government policy and talk a little bit about what we are working with Barbadians to help achieve, I also have to be very clear that it bothers me when there are attempts at deception. It bothers me when people try to perpetrate deceit on the good people of the Labour Party, on the good people of Christchurch, and on the good people of Barbados. And I come with this particular perspective, perhaps a perspective that some of my colleagues that were previously on the front bench for the last 2 years may not have. Because there's this notion that the only way you can have a voice, or the only way you can represent people, is by crossing the floor to take up high office on the other side. And I want to make some things very clear this evening. When I chose to occupy the backbench for 2 years, it was not with the intent of any particular area of advocacy. I consider that as a Barbados Labour Party member of Parliament, as a member of Parliament for the party that constitutes the government, I have a responsibility. I considered that I had that responsibility in advocacy with my colleagues, in parliamentary group meetings on Mondays. I had a responsibility to attend, and it seems that those who have chosen to cross the floor to take up high office on the other side did not understand that they had an avenue, that they had a duty to occupy and to take up to represent the people of Christchurch South. They would have you believe that the only way you can speak on behalf of people is if you are getting one of the highest salaries in Parliament so to do. And I want to disabuse us of that notion, and I use myself as an example for that. Your honourable member of Parliament, he's a very honourable man, so he may not wish to tell you about the number of parliamentary group meetings that the now leader of the opposition missed completely. He may not wish to tell you that. I won't ask him to tell you that. The parliamentary group meeting of the Barbados Labour Party is where we define and discuss policy. It is all our responsibility, not just those who occupy the executive and sit on the front bench. And your honourable member of Parliament may also not wish to tell you about all the quarrelling that I used to do in there. I used to quarrel. That is my responsibility to represent the people of St. Michael South Central. That is the avenue that the Barbados Labour Party afforded me as a member of the backbench. That was my duty. So the notion that you didn't have a voice or you couldn't speak up on behalf of people of Christchurch South is a fallacy. And I want us to be clear on that. The way that you represent your constituents is to show up in the constituency, is to walk about and talk to people, is to listen to people's concerns, is to show up at Parliament when the Tuesday come, take off your sunglasses, stay awake, and engage in the business of the people of Barbados. You did not need to assume the position of leader of the opposition in order to do that. That was a choice that you made, and let us be real. Straight talk. If you wanted to be ushered in by protocol and sit down in a fancy seat at the people events, say so. Say that. Be honest. We're not going to judge you for that. But do not claim that you couldn't represent the people of Christchurch South in Parliament because you didn't have the opportunity. You know, I take very seriously, always have and always will, my duty to the people of St. Michael's South Central. And one of the things that I find extremely encouraging about this great party of ours is that all ideas can contend. There is space for dissent. And even though sometimes my friend, Minister Duguid, didn't always like all the robustness of my dissent, there is space for it. That is why. That is what makes this Barbados Labour Party different from the other people. There's space for us to discuss, to disagree, and to come to an understanding about the way that we go forward. And I'll give you some examples that I happen to be very proud of. We had a position called school monitors. We had school monitors working in our schools, and it was always intended, it's something that came up during COVID, it was intended to be a temporary position. Many of us realize the tremendous contribution that school monitors were making and are making in our schools. And one of the things that I advocated for was for us to be able to make that position a permanent one, to be able to transition it to the aides that they now have in schools. And I'll tell you the truth. People came from far and wide to that little office in Tweedside Road to discuss with me how important they felt the role was. You see, not everything that you say and do for advocacy has to be in front of a television camera, has to be in the newspaper. I had discussions with the Minister of Education. I had discussions with the Prime Minister. The discussions highlighted the fact that these school monitors were mostly women providing care at these institutions. And if we had a period during the summer vacation where they were not remunerated, it would affect the extent to which they could prepare to get their children back to school. The Minister of Education agreed. The Prime Minister agreed. And from there, we were able to find a way clear to bring these school monitors on in a permanent way. And today, most of them are working in schools across Barbados. That is how you sit on a backbench and advocate for the people in your constituency and the people in Barbados. Now, if many of you have been paying attention, you would also know that I quarrel about tenantry land. I say quarrel in the way, in the colloquialism, right? That is just a turn of phrase. But I made very strong representation about the issue of tenantry land. The fact that there are many people in St. Michael South Central and other areas in St. Michael, who had been waiting to be able to take possession of that land. The issue of land tenure and ownership is very, very important in Barbados. And it is important to the legacy of the Barbados Labour Party. It is our legacy. The Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act is our legacy. And I want people to understand that it is not a historical fact. It is part and parcel and the core of the ideology of what makes us the Barbados Labour Party. Ownership matters. We had a Democratic Labour Party where hardly any land was conveyed in the entire 10 years that they were there. And one of the things that I advocated for was to be able to say, look, let us make sure that we have no interruptions in this legacy of ours. People must have ownership of the land they occupy to use as a financial instrument, to use as equity, to be able to borrow against, to give themselves a chance in this Barbados. I talked about it in parliamentary group. I talked about it on the floor of Parliament many times. And as a result of that, as a result of our collective conversation, we saw that in the following estimates that there was money allocated to the Urban Development Commission to be able to begin the transfer once again of that tenantry land. There is more than one way to advocate for the people that you represent. When there are no big cameras around, when you don't have to put on a jacket and tie. And in fact, if you had knocked on our door, then to talk about these issues, sir, the difference is that we would have opened the door. We would have let you in. You went knocking on a door that the people barely wanted to open, and you had to wait to be let in. We would have let you in to talk. Monday afternoons, Monday evenings were always there. But do not blame the fact that you were not able to provide adequate representation on issues for the people of Christchurch South on this notion of having a voice. You always had a voice. In fact, it is an insult to the people who sit outside Parliament. It is an insult to the people who do not have the platform that you had for 5-6 years to suggest that you had no avenue to represent the people that voted for you. I reject it entirely because I sat on a backbench for 2 years in circumstances where I had many avenues at my disposal and used them with results to be able to accomplish things for the people of St. Michael South Central. But I go further. And I know that the people who invited me here thought they were going to hear a little bit about the ministry, and it was time for that. But these are important things to say because I want us to understand that the legacy of the Barbados Labour Party, the tradition of the Barbados Labour Party is representation, is showing up, is talking to our people. That is what sets us apart from the other people. I hear all kinds of things now about how the process in the well of Parliament for estimates is problematic. That public officers should not be invited into the well because it is highly political. And you know, it makes me smile. Because notwithstanding the claim that it is too political, almost every utterance from the leader of the opposition over the last 2 weeks has been very politically polarizing. While the Barbados Labour Party government has come to talk about the business of the day, he claims he has a voice. Now, you would think that he would use that voice to similarly engage on those policies, but no. It is just a lot of political grandstanding in front of the same public officers that he seems to be so concerned about. And it doesn't make sense to me. In that same well of Parliament, I was able to raise the issue of the temporary workers at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I was speaking on behalf of people in my constituency who found that they were not able to plan their business and plan their lives on the basis of this temporary work. And I raised it. On that occasion, those people who, in St. Michael South Central, that I was representing and on whose behalf I was advocating, were subsequently to that estimate session appointed. But not only that, we heard in these estimates from the Director of Human Resources at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital the increased numbers, because it's not just for me that I taught these things, We heard the increased numbers of workers in QEH who had since been appointed. And you want to tell me that you cannot use the backbench of Parliament to represent the people that put you there? You should be shamed. So, you know, we are in the holy month of Ramadan. And I always say that it's not everything for which people advocate that will affect each of us. But I do, as the representative for St. Michael South Central, where many of the people that I represent are of the Muslim faith, it is important as well to see the issues that affect different groups of people, because they're not all going to affect us all equally. And so one of the things that was represented to me was that we had difficulties with people getting access to visas to be able to travel to Saudi Arabia for the Hajj pilgrimage, which is a very important step that Muslims have to take. It's something that I raised in the same estimates process and raised again and again and again and again in parliamentary group. I used to show up, one thing about me. And subsequently, I don't recall how many months ago, the foreign minister was able to report that based on their discussions with our colleagues there in Saudi Arabia, that we were able to get Barbados included in the list of countries that could apply online so that Muslim Barbadians could more easily travel to Saudi Arabia for Hajj. Now, you may not feel compelled to applaud for that one, but I want to let you know that these things matter. These questions of faith and free expression of people's faith, it matters. And I didn't come here to pat myself on the back. In fact, you would not even know these things if the particular gentleman had not suggested to the people of Barbados that him putting on his big suit and crossing the floor and sitting at the head of Parliament on the front bench was the only way. No, I take exception to it. It is not the only way in our democratic process that one can raise dissent. But even so, look at the quality of the dissent. Look at the quality of the engagement. Where is the robust policy conversation? Where are the concerns of the people of Christchurch South? I do not hear them. I hear a lot of posturing. I hear a lot of anger, perhaps, at having been overlooked for a position that you thought should have been yours. The only advice I can give to the good gentleman is to set aside the ego and to remember who put you, not just the people that put you, but the color that you had on that got you in that honorable chamber. You know, there are some countries where if you cross the floor, you gotta go for a by-election. The people of Christchurch South will have to make their determination. But I say these things to you this evening to be able to reinforce in all of us that representation looks like a lot of different things. It does not always require high office. Leadership does not always require us to be at the top. Sometimes leadership is from behind. Sometimes leadership is conversation. Sometimes leadership is persuasion. Sometimes leadership is just bringing 3 or 4 to have a discussion and to help share ideas or thoughts on a particular policy of government. That is also leadership. And so I want you, Christchurch West, to be encouraged in Christchurch that your work to help galvanize this wider parish is particularly important now. And to be able to step in the breach for those members of the Labour Party in Christchurch South that feel, frankly, hard done by as a result of what they have just experienced. Now, tomorrow is budget. And there are a lot of very important questions that are at play. There are a lot of noises being made. You know, I had a conversation with the Minister in Finance a couple of days ago, Minister Strawn, and he said to me, there is no reality in which I will take counsel from the Democratic Labour Party about how to manage the country's debt. Because, I mean, the temerity of a group of people who caused us to have to enter a debt restructuring, to then come on the other side of the debt restructuring when we have all managed to survive, and in many cases to thrive, to come on the other side and say, oh, that debt restructuring put the NIS in peril. That debt restructuring put the central bank in peril. But they don't bother to remind you that the reason that the NIS took a hit because of debt restructuring was because they borrowed too much from the NIS. It is like you start a fire and they run outside and call fire, fire, fire. That is exactly what has happened here. And you know, I understand the feeling of Barbadians that we want to get on with things. I agree. We don't always want to keep rolling back in history and saying this happened 10 years ago and this happened 15 years ago. But we have to understand what brought us here, what precipitated these actions. The Minister of Finance, the Honorable Prime Minister, didn't get up one day and say, you know, I feel it restructuring the debt. In fact, it is the kind of operation that many countries have not been bold enough to undertake. And one of the reasons that it was so successful had to do with the people who did it. Do you think, you know, I remember a few years before the 2018 election, Chris Sinclair, as Minister of Finance, got up all hot and sweaty and talked about how he had found a way to reprofile the debt. We're talking about $1.9 billion, yeah? He found a way to, in arrears, he found a way to reprofile the debt, and it was going to save us $70 million. So we got $2 billion in arrears, billions more in actual loan, outstanding loan repayments, and the most he could say that he could save us is $70 million. But I was like, I gotta go to the supermarket, and I tell you, boy, these things are coming about $500. And you said, this dollar will help. This dollar, that will help. But the truth is that they couldn't have done it because no one would have allowed a Barbados led by the then government to enter into a restructuring. They wouldn't have trusted us. They trusted us to do it properly and get it right because of who was leading the country. They trusted us to borrow to be able to execute important things because of who was leading and is leading the country. But then I hear all kinds of other noises. Oh, we have to focus on public investment. Do you know that, and Minister Duguid, I holding a bit of your portfolio here, but only temporarily. But do you know that while this Barbados Labour Party government has been in service to the people of Barbados, cumulatively over the last 5 years, 6 years, we were able to see 16% of GDP spent on public investments, capital expenditure that is important to be able to get the country going again. It's important to create jobs. It's important to create confidence. And when I talk about capital expenditure, I'm talking about roads. I'm talking about public buildings. I'm talking about works that are going to keep us safe, like the works going on in the Scotland district and the Gabions and so on. Even in COVID, our capex was the highest, far above anything that the Democratic Labour Party in previous years had ever achieved over 10 years. In fact, cumulatively over 6 years, our capital expenditure was greater than theirs over a 10-year period. And why is that important? And I'm saying these things because sometimes we hear people talk and make comparisons, and we don't realize that they're really holding up straw men and making false equivalencies. We saw in the Central Bank Governor's report that he recommended that we increase our capital expenditure to be able to get the economy going again to 5%. But I also want us to be clear that in every year since we have been in service to the people of Barbados, we have gone higher in capital expenditure than the Democratic Labour Party in the previous 10 years. Because they're going to come and they're going to say these things and they're going to make it seem as if we're not doing enough. I also want it to be clear, and I'll say it again, that we found the debt at 178% of GDP, and in December it was down to 115% of GDP. I keep repeating these numbers because I want us to understand and to be able to hold up our chests and understand what the Barbados Labour Party has been able to achieve on behalf of the people of Barbados. But I always say, and I take the point, that it is not just the macro numbers that matter. You know, Minister Duguid will tell you that when he talks to the construction people, and when he talks to the tourism people, and when we talk to the bankers, they say, and sometimes we as Barbadians don't want to hear this, but they say, the economy is set for growth. But you know what my problem is? Skills, labor. It is something that we have to confront. We are in a situation where, because of the good work of your MP, following on from his friend's good work in investment, we are in a situation where we have the projects, but in many cases we don't have the labor. We don't have the project management skills. We don't have some of the other kinds of skills that we need. And that is why this Barbados Labour Party started a range of programs, Construction Gateway program to be able to get skills up. The National Transformation Initiative with thousands of courses available to people. But we have to be able to get that human capital investment, to get those skills in a position that we can take advantage of where the economy is going. It is difficult to talk about cost of living. Politicians don't often like to talk about it because it's a difficult thing to confront. It is difficult to have to say that there are things happening outside of Barbados that control the way we live, right? It's difficult to have to admit that, to have to say that the world is in an inflation crisis, right? Things are expensive. Notwithstanding that our inflation over the 2-year period is among the lowest in the Caribbean and now among the lowest in the world, still, we have to listen and we have to pay attention when Barbadians say we are finding it difficult to afford things. And we did listen. That was the reason for the compact that the social partnership entered. That was the reason for the cap on VAT for a particular basket of goods. That was the reason for the removal of VAT with respect to electricity bills. That was the reason for the 2 wage increases that this Barbados Labour Party government was able to achieve. But I have perhaps an unpopular perspective on this, which is that cost of living is not inflation alone. Cost of living is inflation relative to income, is a measure of affordability. And the truth is that there's some things that we need to do in a real way to allow people to address this. When we wrote the first BERT, Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, in 2018, one of the things that we targeted was that we knew we would eventually have to come to a place where people were making more money because of the kinds of jobs. Not, and I want you to hear me, not just by paying more for existing jobs. Not just by paying more for existing jobs, but by moving the economy to a high-skilled economy where people were able to get jobs that pay at a higher level. That is the challenge for us now. To be able to move to a high-wage economy, one. And that's why you see the courses, like the cybersecurity courses that are being offered. And I'll come to that in a few minutes that I have left in a second. But that is why we are trying to pivot this economy towards a new industrial policy that is driven in large part by technology, so that people can acquire and practice the skills that are going to earn them more in markets in Barbados and outside. But the other thing we have to do, and it is not a fanciful idea, it is not a dream, it is not just something that you read in the newspaper. We have to be able to finally transition this economy to one that is based on fossil fuels, from one that is based on fossil fuels to one that is based on clean, renewable energy. And I know that in the coming days, we will hear some more of that, but that is part of the transformation. Part of the transformation is that green transition to renewable energy. That is what is going to make all of our overheads in small business affordable. You will find that the biggest expense for businesses, big and small, has to do with fuel. Once we effect that transition and make it affordable, and make energy affordable, that is how we are going to be able to afford to run our businesses and run our households in this country. But the education transformation is a part of that as well. To be able to educate our young people away from, or not just around, those traditional jobs. Or not just around jobs at all, but around business. And being able to have the confidence and the innovation to create new products and find new markets in Barbados and elsewhere. And so this is where the Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology comes in. You thought it wasn't getting there now, but I'm getting there. Because what a newly rebuilt fit-for-purpose MIST will have to do, and the problem that we'll have to solve, is how do we create a new industrial policy that is driven by technology? I don't mind telling you that one of the things that we as a government have been doing for many years is buying technology, being consumers of tech. And we have to find a way now to get together with the companies in our space, local businesses that are software developers, that are engineers, that are coders, that are working, that have telecoms companies that are working in this area, to generate products. Generate products that solve our problems, but then that scale up to solve the world's problems. So that instead of just becoming consumers of technology and saying, yes, you have an off-the-shelf solution, we want to buy that and we want to put it in our ministry, we can put it in immigration and we can put it in the police. No. The way to drive a technological industrial transformation is to create the technology for the problems. And there are companies here that are doing it. The other way to do that is to use data as a commodity. We generate a lot of data in this country. There's a lot of information out there. We have to be able to use it properly, and that's why we came with the Data Protection Act of 2019, to protect that data. But alongside protecting it, we also have to be able to use it for people to create knowledge products, to do research and development, to be able to understand how is it that the aloe vera plant can be turned into something that is therapeutic for the world to use. We have to get beyond the point of just going in the yard and breaking off a piece of aloes and swallowing it or putting it in our hair. The reason that we do that, and that came down through generations, is that it works, right? But are we going to allow somebody else to come here and take all of that knowledge from all of us and to uproot all the aloe plants that are indigenous to this country and to go away and make millions of dollars? Or are we going to do it ourselves? It is through Export Barbados, what we would used to call Barbados Investment in Industrial Development Corporation, and the research and development that they're doing there. It is through the data centers, the data center that we will develop as part of MIST. It is through engaging startups that are involved in technology locally to find out what they're doing and how we can use it to solve our problems and the world's problems. That is how we create these high-income jobs. You know, I want to finish by telling you about the public sector modernization program that we have at MIST. And it may not sound like a success story when I tell you, but it will be. The government began the process in 2019 of digitizing records. And that's been going for some time. What we decided to do with those young people, mostly young people, who've been doing that work, one of the things we realized is that we need to change the technology, because the technology that we were using did not give us the best use of the data. It meant that we could mainly just look at it, but we couldn't manipulate it. And we decided, look, we have to stop, and we have to reset, and we have to change the technology that we're using. But here's the thing. I met with these individuals, and I say young people because that naturally rolls off the tongue, but actually, there are a lot of people getting involved in technology who are over the age of 50, who are transitioning to a new career, and who are finding that it is a career that they're able to transition to. And so some of our officers in the Digitization Center are actually those people above the age of 50 finding something new to do, getting involved in tech. There's a reason that we have 98% uptake of the national ID in the population 50 and over, and 90% in the overall population. This notion that older people can't change their ways is a fallacy. It is the young people that sometimes have the issue. And older people are ready for the transformation. But these people that have been working in the Digitization Center, we realized we had to pause. The project, as it currently sits, comes to an end at the end of this month. But these folks have gotten so much practice, so many skills, have been able to develop as tech professionals from the work that they've been doing over the last 4 years. And the plan that we have now is to use them as our platform to be able to build out within MIST a set of experts in technology that have come organically from this project. It is not a case where we say this was temporary, the project is over, thanks and good night. What we are doing now is a career development program with them. Each of them is signing up for courses in the National Transformation Initiative, Coursera, all of the tech courses that are available. I encourage you, if you haven't yet gone, to go and have a look. And they are building on the skills that they earn in the program, and what we have committed to do, we've assigned a career development professional, and we are working with someone in NTI to be able to make sure that we hold on to these folks. These folks and others are going to be the beginning of that industrial policy revolution in technology. The programs that we create that are temporary have the wherewithal to allow people to scale up their income, scale up their knowledge, and to do better in their lives. The same thing is true of the youngsters who have started companies coming out of the NCC 360 program. I have some in my constituency. So that they spend some of their time on that program, weeding the road and cutting grass, but you know what else? They can go at any time of the day to do that. The other hours of the day, they're going to other areas, right? They're taking more work. They're developing their skills. They're hiring each other in communities and broadening their horizons and doing more. And so we as government have challenged ourselves to not just see these kinds of programs as a way to give somebody some money in their pocket. We have to move beyond that. Certainly in MIST, we have used the digitization program as a way to identify people who are interested in tech. I asked the question in the room on the day that I met with them. Because we all know that sometimes people take a job. Sometimes people take a job, they say, all right, well, I ain't doing nothing, so I can do this job. So I wanted to see what was the interest and the involvement. It said a lot to me that every single one of them was on time to have this conversation. It said a lot to me, right? In the room, engaged, ready to talk about the next steps. So I said, how many people in this room has a real interest in technology as a career? And everybody's hand went up. And during the morning session and talking to them, and some of them have reached out after, I realized that this program of government, while in this iteration it ends at the end of this month, it is the beginning for them. And I have taken the opportunity, and I'm working with the officers to make sure that we don't lose any of them, that we use them as a testing ground, as a platform, as a way to build out skills for a new industrial policy and technology for this country, because this is the way that we are going to really organically grow income, move people towards higher wages, and help people to become successful. Barbados as a party family, I want us, as we prepare for the budget tomorrow, to know that Barbados is in a transformation. And this is the time for us to be bolder than we have ever been. This is the time for us to be able to hold up our chests. And it's not every time that everything will be going perfectly. But when you are operating on principle and with a good heart and good intentions and good governance, which has always been the Labour Party way, you can bank on success. It doesn't mean that everything that you do or try, you will hit out of the park or of the oval right away, but that we stay focused on the task ahead that we have to deliver. So Labour Party family, I want to thank you for your hospitality this evening, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow as the Prime Minister gets ready to deliver her budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for a comprehensive, robust discussion on representation. And I want to say that I am so pleased to know that at our boundary, we have a strong representative there. At the boundary of Christchurch West, we are rubbing shoulders with someone who's not afraid to use the backbench to advocate for the people of our constituency. There is nothing that suggests you have to be in a particular place or a particular location based on what the minister said to represent your people. So you just need to be present and to use that voice. So Minister, I want to thank you for not only sharing with us your perspective on good representation at the level of community, but for also reminding us about what leadership requires of us. And I want to say that, before I introduce Dr. Duguid, I want to say that we then, as the constituents, have to support our leaders. Because here it is, you have people using what resources are available to them, persons whom we have elected, by the way, to use what resources are available to them to advocate about our needs and to fight to have our needs facilitated. We cannot do that, so the representative that we put in place is doing that. And therefore, when crisis comes, when unseen curveballs comes, we have to stand firm and support our party. We cannot be wishy-washy and sit on the fence. We have to make stern decisions that we understand our leaders are in there fighting and representing for our needs. So I just want to say that you have really inspired us in Christchurch West to stay firm, and to understand that your leadership and you're getting in there and putting your head to the block for us, parliamentary group, and putting your head to the block, advocating for change that may not sometimes be so popular, but is required. I want to thank both of you for representing our constituents, your constituents, at the high level of office. Just to remind you of the correspondences that we have had coming out so far, to alert you that there is a new WhatsApp channel that you can log into so that you can get information firsthand. It was recently established by from party headquarters, where you can just tap the link and you get news, you get any activities that are going on. So we want you to log into that and get everything firsthand, all the updates coming out of the party. There is also a branch meeting. I think I saw Minister Cadell, they're working really hard, and our good representative, Dr. Duguid, because I see you're also scheduled next weekend as well for 4:30. So there is a branch meeting in St. Michael West on the 24th of March. That's Richmond Gap. There is also another meeting coming up on the 24th. So you see they're working hard, because I'm not moved off for the 24th as yet. But there's also a South Central Link Up, which is a series of community talks, right? And that is happening next Sunday at 4 p.m. at Schilling Square, Della Maryland. Okay, so we can feel more than welcome to go over and support Minister Cadell there as well. There's a branch meeting in St. George North that is also on the 24th of March at 4:30. It is at the Cuthbert Moore School. Minister Tony Moore will be speaking with her constituents as well. There will be a panel who will be discussing topics as it relates to social care, housing, and labor clauses according to the Concessions Act. The speakers are Honorable Kurt Humphrey, Honorable Dwight Sutherland, and Senator Gregory Nichols. St. James, constituency of St. James. There is one more I want to mention. It is called Writing Strong, where you're going to have Kerry Simmons, Honorable Kerry Simmons, Honorable Sandra Husbands, and Honorable Edmund Hinkson speaking at that meeting as well. I'm just going to check for the date. I'll give you the date before I'm finished. I just had it here. And the guest speaker, there is Honorable Ryan Strong. those are the correspondences I've received so far. So just to give you that update so you know what's happening and that you can feel free to participate. I want to now introduce to you our parliamentary representative, Senior Minister in the Prime Minister's Office, Dr. William Duguid.
Thank you. Thank you and good evening to everyone. You know, as I sat here and listened to Minister Cattle, you can only come to one conclusion. Minister Cattle is ready for the debate on budget. Would you all agree with that? Minister Cattle is ready. It is absolutely clear. And she's not only ready to relate to what is happening in her ministry, but she's ready to take on the leader of the opposition as well. Full frontal, full press. And in a way, I'm a little glad because it takes a little pressure off of us in parliamentary group, because now she could focus on the leader of opposition and a little less on us in parliamentary group. And also, you can tell by the amount of success that she's had in the various policy discussions that Minister Cattle more than likely wins every argument that she gets involved with. So when I look at her husband, I say, I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for you because Minister Cattle obviously wins. Well, she said I'm hearing persuasive, but I can go a little further and say is the language can be robust and forceful. And for those of you who don't understand, parliamentary group is when all the members of parliament, Senate, and the elected members, and those who are involved in the party get together and thrash out policy ideas. We throw out ideas amongst us, and we try to find a way forward for all of the things and all of the various positions that people come from. And from that, we get a consensus on which we all support and move forward. And Minister Cattle wins every single time, as you can tell. Not every single time, but most of the time. So, really, today is a very special day because today is Budget Eve. And as you know, whenever budget is here, we all wait with bated breath to hear what is going to be in the budget. And as you know, as is my practice, just before budget, I always come to you, the people of Christchurch West, and ask you what you would like to hear about, and to get that feedback from each of you. Because when we enter Parliament, we don't enter Parliament on our own accord. We enter Parliament as your representative. So I cannot represent you unless I hear from you. And things change. Your position last year may not be your position this year. So today, what I propose to do is open up the floor to questions, queries, ideas. You have two ministers here. I don't know, hopefully Minister Cattle will be here for a little longer. Maybe a lot of questions at her first, and then when she leaves, then I will take a few. But let us have some questions. Let us hear what you would like to see in the budget. Let us hear what you think the government has been doing well. What do you think that we can do better? I see my friend Colin Williams. He always knows there's lots of things the government can do better. And you would also know that I encouraged all of you to get involved and get into the call-in programs and so on. Little did I know that a day or two ago, I was myself drafted in to speak on the call-in program to speak about the geriatric hospital. And it's not easy sometimes because the moderator can ask searching questions, and you have to be nimble on your feet to be able to respond to the questions. But it's important because lots of people get their information from those call-in programs. And lots of people on the other side uses it for disinformation. So it's important that we get our people involved, get our people writing letters, get our people engaged in the call-in programs. And this is important because the call-in programs have become an important part of our society, and it's an important part that we must be engaged as a political party as well. So with those few words, I want to hear from you. Unfortunately, it means that you have to wait for the microphone because, as you can see, we're streaming live. So I want to open up to the floor to ask us questions, what you'd like to see in the budget, what has the government been doing well, what we can improve on, and how you think the country is being managed. For my part, I think that we have done a fantastic job over the last 6 years. It's not been easy. It's not been easy. You know, and anyone that tells you that it's easy to run a country when they had a volcano, and they had a hurricane, and they had a pandemic, one after the other, over the 6 years, it's not been easy. And on top of it, we started from a negative position that the other side left us in. So to bring us from that negative position, downgrade after downgrade, you all remember that? And now getting triple upgrades in one and all sorts of things. Reducing the debt, improving the well-being, and giving, more than anything else, giving the people of Barbados hope. Hope that there's going to be a better tomorrow. Seeing how we've improved today and knowing that our trajectory is up. You know, for over, I think, 14 sections, Barbados has seen growth in our economy. I could take y'all back to the lost decade when they could not even get, in all the 10 years, 1% growth. Couldn't even achieve a 1%. And we now hovering at 4.3, 4.5 in that region. Because, and it doesn't happen just by somebody saying, let's look for growth. It is work and building on a foundation, building on things, achieving, getting forward, moving forward, even by 1 inch every single day, but taking the country forward. And it's through the astute leadership of Mia Amor Motley as the Prime Minister of this country, her vision, her leadership, and her ability to take this country forward. That is why we are where we are today. Anyway, I don't want to get into my political speech. I know that y'all have had a lot between the estimates. You're going to get ready for budget. I want to see y'all that budget, but I want to hear you, the people of Christchurch West and St. Michael's South Central, to tell us what the government has been doing well, what the government has been doing poorly, what you'd like to see in the budget, and any other thing you want to share with us. Colin, I know you're going to go first. No, not first today. Go ahead. Go ahead. You got to wait for the microphone.
Colin Williams. Let me first go to Marcia. I always believe from the time I saw her that she was a bright spark. And every time she speaks in the capacity of a nation building and a wide range of topics. And I am very impressed by her. And one of the things she said this evening too that I agree with, that we have to go for technology to build Barbados. It is true. We have to go for technology to build Barbados. But while Marcia, you were saying that, there's an open estate up in there in Grisettes. The old Grisette estates they have a lot of old buildings that were abandoned. I would like you to consider the cabinet, if you could set up some business up in there to get people to come and do learn some technology. A lot of people all room Gazettes and all, open some little buildings that do some technology up in there. I think that would be a good thing. Study Gazettes, up in Gazettes, thing, up in the industrial park. I hope that it'll be done soon. The other thing too is that yesterday, me and my brother sat down and we considered something. You already consider COVID. You will consider that building that was built down to St. Lucie was built in 13 weeks or 6 weeks. You know if that wasn't built, nothing in Barbados will die. Refurbished then, but actually built then. That's got in the good. Right, but refurbished, but 5 or 6 weeks to refurbish that is a short time. And I believe that if that wasn't refurbished and built in that area, nothing in Barbados would die. 100 people in Barbados would die because there was nowhere to put them, no place to have them to assemble. And I went there for 2 weeks and I saw the issue down there. And I was saying that I hope, to God's sake, that something would happen to seize the COVID If not, we would have had a lot of deaths and things. But especially that part, thrills me to see how many people was taken off the road in a dying state by doctors and carried down there, that place. So if it wasn't put for, and let me tell you something too. We had no thing center. You know, for a lot of years we had no, they call quarantine center. And you know, it became the only quarantine center in Barbados. I worked in the Ministry of Health for years. And I tell you, it's a great thing. It's the only quarantine center Barbados have as a place. You can imagine a big Barbados with no quarantine center. So that place was a multi-faceted thing. A quarantine center, and it did a lot for the thing. Now, let me get to you now, Mr. Duguid. The question is that Marshall created a quarantine center. Marshall created a thing up in Gazette that will help young people to think. Like, I agree with science and technology is the same. I'm going to you now. I want to ask your Minister of MTW and about the bus. I am not happy with the bus service, truthfully. We spend a lot of money on buses, we've done well, but I'm not happy. I go to the stands at night and go home, and the bus service is a problem. People up there for think of problem, and I think that, I spoke to a guy just this morning, and he told me one of the problems was that, he said, although you buy buses, those buses come and you have to charge it for hour. That's one of the things, charge for hour before they go on the road and services. But I hope that the Minister of, not the Deputy Prime Minister, man, the Minister of Transport and Work, that she would come out, grab out her bottom, yes, grab out her bottom, and come out to the centers you have, bus centers, and ask the people who are there what is going on, what's the problem, what is happening, and see if they get that problem relieved. Because I know buses came, and it is very sad to see that bus service at night scrambling both. But I believe that the services by the bus are run badly. And she needs to take care of that by going to and ask them what are the problems, how can they help you, what are the problems, what we can do to help the bus service. Because when people can't get home at night after working hard, it's a sad thing. I stay by that. And I hope that that will be your cry as a cabinet minister. And another thing, we almost forget before you're done. I see you building roads, paving roads in my old hometown, which is Baxter's where I was born. But let me see something. You pray of Kensington New Road, they have two roads there like a racetrack, not a racetrack, a gorilla track that has been digged up. Why she cannot, the same time that road was built in Kensington, let those two roads, because it makes it comes to people who say, look, if she build the roads out here in that place down there, and she built the two roads, you gotta be very careful how you do things. While those roads was built in there down there, and things that, those two roads should have been done. And that, I put my case and tell Santi that I call him Williams. Ask to make sure those two roads are done and transport work. I thank you.
Thanks, Colin. You gave me an opportunity. Thanks for the encouraging words that you always have. I always like to hear from the stalwarts of the Labour Party and those who keep us focused. So thanks for that. But I thank you for the comment about the idea of a science and technology center using some of our BIDC properties. You gave me an opportunity. I do accept the challenge. It is something that we've been discussing. But you also gave me an opportunity to say a little bit about some of the ways in which BIDC has been using some of the properties the assets. You know, on that same backbench that I talked about earlier, I talked about the need to have an asset register for the country, and we've been doing that work, at least with the properties that BIDC is responsible for. One of the things that we've been able to do, and Mark Hill, as CEO, and his team have been able to do, is to be able to get a better handle on making those properties profitable for the company. And in fact, they have used an artificial intelligence approach to the property management. And so all of the ways in which people are able to pay rent, the entire management of the estates, what we would normally call the estates, are through, and I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but we call it Inez. I like to say we call her Inez. If you get a chance, go on Google Inez BIDC, and you'll see what I mean. We've been able to program an artificial intelligence tool. We've been able to program an artificial intelligence tool to do all of that work for us, so that we are able to have better use of the human resources that exist within BIDC to do that. So we've built Inez, and I can't say that name without thinking about the old Calypso. I think it is perfectly suitable to be able to have something with the name Inez that's helping us to manage our properties. But you may have also seen the new Mechanics Bay. And this is what I mean when I talk about using our resources to solve some of the issues that Barbadians talk about. We have the Mechanics Bay at Rosettes. And at first, it started out as a subject of some persuasion, right? The first two people that we had, mechanics that we had in the property, came early because they saw the usefulness of it. You have all the space to be able to have some storage if you need, to be able to make sure that you remove yourself from the community where you may be a hazard to your neighbors. I know Bajans like to be good neighbors, right? And so we went out and had some conversations with some mechanics in different areas and said, look, this is a lot of spillover here into the road and onto people's properties and attracting rats and all kinds of things, stopping people from passing the road properly. This is a hazard. We have created a mechanics bay for you at a very, very affordable rate so that you can safely practice your skill and do your work and have people know where to come and find you and professionalize the work that you do. That meant that we are now oversubscribed. The mechanics bay is full. We're building 5 more units currently, and we're looking for more space because mechanics from around Barbados have said, look, what we're finding is that some of our clients prefer the safety of the mechanics bay, where they go and they leave their vehicle and they know that nobody ain't picking up and driving it off the lot the next night. And so we are now oversubscribed, and we thank Barbadians, really, for understanding that this is a collective challenge we had and that we're solving it collectively. So I thank you, Colin, for giving me the opportunity to talk about that, but also to talk about the relationship between care, the care that we provide in the household, and we talked about the school monitors, we talked about the elderly care workers, but there is a relationship between care and the work that we do outside of our homes, right? We realize, and we just had International Women's Day, and this is Women's Month, we realize that one of the ways to make sure that women are able to earn an income for themselves and their families is to make sure that we provide adequate care, and not just women, but men as well, because we know that we like to talk about our share the care model, where care is a responsibility of the household, is not just a responsibility of women. And so if we want men to work and we want women to work comfortably, we know that we have to provide adequate care facilities. That's something that we've been hearing for a long time, that we don't have enough affordable childcare and affordable elderly care. So what we've taken one of those properties to do, Colin, and this is Pelican now, we have a reimagined Pelican village that we're changing up. It in fact is going to act as the, we're going to use it for Cricket World Cup. And it's going to be one of the one of the areas where people lime and hang out, and because it's so close to the Oval, we're going to stage there a kind of a hub for the entertainment around cricket. But what we're doing there long term is building out new child and elderly care facilities. For the first time in a long time, having new daycare and elderly care facilities at Pelican Village to accommodate 150 children and 50 older people, because it's not just childcare that we need. A lot of us have our older relatives living with us, and we can't go and work because they need constant care. And so this is one of the ways in which the Ministry of Industry is not just concerned with making companies profitable and driving growth in that way, but making sure that everybody can participate in that growth. Women, men, people who care for older people, because we don't just provide the jobs and the entrepreneurship opportunities, but also the care opportunities by building out some of those properties for that purpose. So I thank you for being able to share a little bit about that.
Thank you, Minister Cattle. And to your other query, first about the buses. Let me be clear about the bus transportation system. I agree, it can always be better. But it took me back to when we first started the Transportation Augmentation Program, better known as the TAP. And I remember in the early days, I had to beg people to come and join on to the TAP program. And we were, myself and the then permanent secretary, were meeting with ZR operators, B operators, even the maxi-taxi operators to try to get people to come and get involved with the transport augmentation program. And then we also met with people who were working at the transport board who were going to take voluntary separation packages, brought in buses, imported them to join into the program. The transport augmentation program has been a success. Clearly, without it, we would not have the kind of transport system that we have today. However, the times that they work leaves much to be desired, which means that you get people working during the working hours, but then after working hours, there tends to be a lag in people who have to get home later. As you said, at the evening times is when you get the biggest problem. So, okay, and we have to work on that. There are ways that we have to improve it to be able to get the transport augmentation program working even better. It's now, just like the mechanics, oversubscribed. Now everybody wants to get in the transport augmentation program. And it is something that we need to build on, and the country will be hearing more about how we're going to improve on transportation. Now, you also mentioned the charging time of the buses. Well, I'm going to tell you, I was the minister when we got the electric buses. And yes, electric buses have to be charged. They don't charge at the frequency that you said, but they do have to be charged. Like other buses had to be refueled. In the same way, the buses have to be charged. But even although they have to be charged, they have still provided a tremendous service to the people of Barbados. You know, I remember when, first thing, you have to understand, those buses are what we call BYD, which is a Chinese company. And, you know, in China, they drive on the other side of the road. And also in China, their bus system is different. And when we first started with the electric buses, a lot of people don't know, but I had to sit down with the technical people and design those buses. We had to actually go through and design the buses, starting with the driver on the other side of the bus. Starting with the doors opening on the other side to what the buses were originally designed for. Starting with the turning base, because a lot of the buses in China, they don't have the corners and the hairpin corners that we have. And then a double battery system with a double transmission to be able to get up Horse Hill and all those. We sent the minister, the then chairman of the transport board, to California to load people on buses and make sure that they get up inclines equivalent to or above Horse Hill. Because we did all of that. And then what I added in as well that wasn't there is the ramp that people could get on with in a wheelchair. And then put Wi-Fi on the buses too. The only thing I have to admit that I forgot, is that in China, the buses stop at every stop. But you know, in Barbados, you got to ring the bell. And I forget the bell part in my designs. We had to add that after. because people ring the bell. You know, it reminds me, as y'all laugh, it reminds me of, I saw a little clip. I think it was a picture of, and it said, now you always know a Bajan, because this guy was in a subway with the trains, and he do so to stop, to hope that you got to put out your hand to stop a train. But the train is stopped at every stop. Well, in China, the buses stop at every stop. They didn't have the bell. I took it for granted that they had a bell, not realizing that I had forgotten, so we had to add in the bells after. But the buses have contributed and have benefited, and the transport system has benefited both from the electric buses and from the transport augmentation program. Transport augmentation program had a tremendous impact. In addition, what we did as well, we took some of the older buses, I think it was 15 or 20 of them, and changed out to what was called the drivetrain, which added another 10, 15 years to the buses. But let me say, the bus system will never be what we want it to be. Because what happens is, as you buy the buses, over time, the buses age, they have to be replaced. We were starting from a position of weakness, and we're building back up. We're going to get there, but we recognize that it is a work in progress. Hopefully, we'll have more space for other people to become a part of the transport augmentation program. We're going to move the country to what's called a mass transit system. But let us get real. The former administration privatized the transport system of this country. There are 700 ZRs in Barbados. We don't have 100, 200 buses. But the quantum of private enterprise in the transport system is huge. And we have to understand that. For whatever reason they decided that they were going to privatize it, that's what they did. They privatized transport in this country. And don't get me wrong. All of the players provide a valuable service, but their behavior leaves much to be desired. And that's where the problem is. And what we then brought legislation, you remember when I talked about it, the 3-strike rule. And we not only are making the drivers accountable, but we're making owners accountable too. And what we're going to do, we're going to bring those regulations into force, because you have to have a nameplate saying who the owner is. People have to know who owns the bus. People have to know, and drivers and owners have to know. The owners have to know, if you hire a driver that is going to be breaking the rules, you're going to end up paying the price. Because you have to carry the responsibility of the person that you hire. Dr. Muhammad here would tell you that when you are in a hospital, you are responsible for the doctors and nurses that work for you, though. With the same thing in the transport system, you are going to be responsible for the drivers that are driving for you. And all of those things, and all of those regulations are in there. How they dress, stopping at the appropriate stops, not making sure that you do the complete route. All of those things are in place. So the government has been trying. It's not perfect. I'm the first to tell you, it's not perfect, but it's a work in progress, and we're going to keep plowing at it till we get it as close to perfect as we can and get to a situation. And another thing that we're looking to do, put what we call transponders on the bus, which means that you can look on your phone and see when the next bus comes in. That's the next thing. So that you know when the next bus comes in, if you just miss it, and if you go a step a little faster to get to the next one. All of these things that we've been doing to make transportation better for all of us. Colin, I want to hear somebody else. You had a long... No. I want to give somebody else a chance. I see Dolores here asking for the microphone. So, Dolores, go ahead. Go ahead, Dolores. Your turn.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, we talk about the transportation. Sometimes they take the St. Patrick bus, and it don't be after hours. And they said, we've got to wait an hour or so. So I said, see me, I don't want to say, going to walk to get the Silver Hill. Because that is time wasting. I want to St. Patrick, because I've got, my little buggy. Right. Another thing with these ZRs, these people, the conductors and the drivers, some of them don't have the manners. Very rude and disrespectful. They dress anyhow. Pass all of them by the waist. With slippers on the feet. Some of them like they ain't even bathe. So I will let the government to do something about that. when you're driving in the van, they're stopping, they can shoot, they stop at the bus stop or wherever for people to come. This is time we ain't got no time to sit on the bus stop waiting for other people to come all the way. I tell them to go along, because I can't run. So it's tell them if they choose to wait, it's up to them. But it's tell them to go. But to me, I feel if you at a bus stop or you can stop, but don't sit down and lag, waiting to see who coming or wait for passengers. And if you see another van coming behind you, you run and go down the road. But people live in jeopardy too. So I feel all these things need to be done. The government needs to crack in on this and let them, when the owners out there, the conductors come, let them get a badge, let them dress for the road properly, make sure they look decent, because we paying them. We paying them, so it's obvious that we're looking for something decent. We go outside in the other places, people got on uniform, people looking decent on the road. But here and then we look, you get on the van, they smell a lot of herb. They're drinking and doing as they like. Only in Barbados they could do these things, not in the place that's got a kind of in the outside world. I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Dolores. And, you know, it makes me remember, I don't know if you all saw the video of the ZR going through Oistins, going through on the part right by the beach and off the road completely altogether. It was really despicable. And you'll be pleased to know that we've taken note, and we're going to be putting up bollards up there very shortly to block any person from deciding that they're going across that short route in the Oistins area. And it also reminded me as well to speak about what we're doing for Oistins. Because as you know, as we're going to have Cricket World Cup, and Minister Cattle spoke about what they're doing for Pelican. In addition, we're doing a major spruce up at Oistins, improving the facilities there, improving the drainage, doing a total uplift for the people of Oistins, getting the vendors involved, getting also not only the information, the infrastructure of Oistins at the Beer Garden, but also doing classes with people, how to be dressed, how to speak to the people, to be able to encourage people to up their game, because it is a service that we're providing. And in the same way that you, Dolores, are asking about a service from the ZR operators, we're also going to extend that so that we provide a better service to all of our visitors that come in. You know, we expect thousands of people at Cricket World Cup. And this is going to be an opportunity for Barbados to be showcased to the world. We could not buy the amount of advertising that you will get from an international sporting event like this. And I want everybody to be on board. Let's show our visitors the best Barbados that we can. Show the service. Show good infrastructure. Show a clean Barbados. Get your area, get your district neat and tidy. And let us prepare to welcome thousands of visitors to our island. You have to. Oh, Miriam.
Yeah, good night to everybody. Good evening. No, we talking about these van people, right? But we still getting in the vans. And then I bust up. We still trying to put me by that corner. We ain't following the rules neither. I being very honest, right? So I hear a statement in Toronto, if the price of something go up, nobody ain't buying nothing, right? So until we as individuals stop, it's gonna actually go on. So what we gotta do as a people, stop for a while and let them know we is the power. You agree with me or not? No, on this, the debushing is a part of the debushing, right? Sometimes when they go help clean up on a place, though. I mean, when they actually go help clean up on a place. When they see garbage in front of the house, when they come with a plastic bag and move it. When they waiting for we, and then when they calling, complaining. I mean, Duguid, me and Monty, all of them is doing an excellent job. But we as individuals have to help. right or wrong. So I just come to state my appointment, right? If all of we come together and we work as a unit, don't talk and then late 12 o'clock when they can't see the bus going running, they see a van, squeeze up. Although when they know it ain't supposed to be that among the passengers on the vehicle, and when they talk about it from brass stats and things, but after hours when they still gonna do it, when they ain't making a difference. You get what I mean? So it start with we too. You get what I mean? So we gotta help do it too. You get what I mean? That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you, Pong. Clearly, he reminds us change starts with us. You know, and I have to agree, Pong, because I was on a bus in Toronto and I tell driver, drop me at the corner, but he listened to me. He listened to me. But that's because the drivers know that they can only stop at the bus stop. And as much as you may want them to stop at the corner or whatever, they know that they have legislation and they know that they will get into trouble. And they actually have trackers that can tell where the bus stopped, why it stopped, and where it stopped and the door open and all sorts of things. So this is where we are going to. But clearly, we have to bring order to it. It is something that we've been working at for a long time. We've passed the legislation. We're going to now have it proclaim the regulations that everybody responsible. But I agree with Pong. We all got to play our part. Yes. Next person. Next person. What?
I would like the rewind of the units because my unit keep tripping. And the only other option is for me to move into Mr. Duguid's constituency office.
And Lillian, we will be very, very happy to have you. I can put in a bunk bed, so I'll be there to protect you as well, so that you can sleep at the top, I can sleep at the bottom. And you know, Lillian, it is not the first time that people will be living in my constituency office. It's not the first time. Those of you who were with me from the beginning, those of you who were with me from the beginning know that when we were in opposition, You know, it's a funny thing that you remind me of something, Lillian. We were in opposition. And I think it was Todd or one of those, I can't remember what the bad weather was. And a person's house was destroyed. And I was calling the then Democratic Labour Party government, asking them to get a house for this person. They say, no, we ain't got no house for that person. But then, you know, they was calling me, not realizing who they're calling. I want an apartment for this body, and I want an apartment for that body. And I laughed to myself. I say, you're calling me on one for an apartment, but yet still you ain't taking any calls on another one. And obviously we didn't have any. And we had to have somebody move in to our constituency office and stayed there for maybe couple years in the constituency office. So Lillian, you won't be the first to move in. But when it comes to the electrical upgrade, yes, the electrical upgrade is going slower. Some areas have been finished faster than others. But there are two parts to the electrical upgrade. And you have to understand that. Part number one to the electrical upgrade is when the National Housing Corporation contractors go in and do the wiring and change the wiring. Because those of you who don't understand, the wiring is 110 or 220. And what it is the changing to upgrade for higher, bigger size wires, better breakers, all of those facilities, conduit, everything to be able to think. That is the first part of it. The second part of the upgrade is the light and power that has to come and change over the meters. And that is the biggest bugbear that we're having. That the light and power has not been following up even after the National Housing Corporation contractors have done their part. So it means that all of the infrastructure, all of the conduit, wires have been changed over, breakers have been done. But the Light and Power now has to come and do their panel side to be able to connect it to the system. So, right, and then on top of it, if on a block, all have to be done before the Light and Power can do their changeover. So it's a work in progress. I'm happy that they've started with yours. They haven't finished it, but I will continue to reach out to National Housing Corporation on your behalf to be able to get that done as quickly as possible. And it's not like I haven't been asking them, but I will continue to ask them on your behalf. But thank you for raising it again. Is there anyone else who would like to bring up anything? Nothing? Well, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Minister Cadell for coming and giving us, please give her a rousing, warm Christchurch applause. I think she did a fantastic job in explaining to us what is happening also in her ministry. She put some lashes on the leader opposition and some warm ones, and that's only the warm up. The real thing coming for budget. But I want to urge all of you, get out tomorrow. We're starting at 3 o'clock. You probably got to be there for 2:15, 2:20, something like that. Welcome the members of the Barbados Party. Lillian, I know you're going to be in St. Lucia, and we're going to miss you. Welcomely warm the members of the Barbados Labour Party who are coming in to listen to the Prime Minister and encourage them, because it's not an easy thing to get up and speak to the nation. Give account of your ministry. Give account of your constituency. And to engender all of the things that you've been doing to take this country forward, either in your constituency or the whole country at large. And of course, give your firm and complete support to the astute leadership and vision of our Prime Minister, Mia Moore-Morton. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam President, I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Duguid, for opening the forum to one rather than one of delivery, where is one of engagement. We're able to hear from our constituents. Dr. Duguid is able to respond. What I did like about that session, Dr. Duguid, is that both yourself and Minister Cadell were able to respond with a voice of action. Not simply acknowledging that there are problems, but you were able to respond and tell us, this is what we are doing, this is what has started, this is what was done. And this demonstrates to us that our ministers are working at the community level and at the national level. And we're not just talking, but that the Barbados Labour Party is delivering and will continue to deliver, and we're only requiring your support. And as Dr. Duguid said, this is not the time to stand on the fence. It is time for us to stand very firm behind our party, not simply because we love our party, because we do, but because of the work that is going on, because of the vision of the party. And as Dr. Duguid reminded us, we were suffering downgrade after downgrade. We are no longer suffering those downgrades. And if that is the case, it is a clear indicator that our ministers are working. And they're not only working, they're coming back to the constituency and they're telling you, look what we have done. You have voted for us, we have represented, and we continue to represent. All right? So it is a time for us to remain firm and focused. Diffuse ourselves from talk that is more fictional than factual. That's what we need to do. So I want to thank you, Minister Cadell, for sharing with us this evening. It was really enlightening. Dr. Duguid for opening the forum and just letting it be about the constituents and for them to say what their concerns are. I just want to add one more concern, sir.
Okay, go ahead. You're our constituent.
When I was in the community yesterday, advertising for our meeting, one resident said to me that she's concerned about the speed of vehicles coming through, and that a lot of the children from Luther Thorn use the road here, but sometimes if there's any blockage on the highway, that there's some vans that will come through and cars that will come through, and they come through at a terrific speed, and she wanted to have consideration as to whether we can have humps installed. So I did promise her, she's unable to attend, but I did promise her that I would raise it on her behalf, and I'm doing so. All right.
So that would be Minister Cattle who has to put the humps over in that section, or no? Obviously, it's not every road that can get humps. We have to understand that. Yeah. Now there are already humps on Observatory Road, as you're aware. In fact, there's a one-way, and people still go down both sides. It's not every road. Some roads are. It has to do with how the class of road. So some classes of roads can get humps. Some classes of roads cannot. And what the MTW does is what they use, they sometimes use other traffic calming measures. So if they can't get humps for whatever reason, that's why we get the one-way systems. That's why we get other types of traffic calming. But we will look at it, see which road it is, and between Minister Cattle and myself, decide which roads can get humps, which roads can't, and see what we can do.
And we appreciate that. We know that that is not just talk, but that it will be action based on how you all have presented and delivered this evening. The only other thing I want to add for myself as it relates to the transportation service is sometimes the music that is played. I find some of the lyrics is a bit atrocious when it comes to the fact that children are using the bus. And we have to take responsibility to try to ensure that our children have a feeling of safety when they're on the buses, and that we are doing everything to dissuade or discourage lewdness among our children when they're using the bus service. So that was our session on any other business as an open forum. Again, want to say thanks for that. And it is at this point I will invite Comrade Hudson to collect subscriptions. Bear in mind, constituents, that the subscriptions generally go to assist with projects. When we are doing things in the community, we need a little funds to work with. So this is where that money goes to. And we generally would give an account at our AGM of how those monies were spent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we finished.
We're done.
We got a tank.